Hey guys, welcome to a new video. I have just interviewed sports photographer James Crombie. It's a bit of a long interview, so I'm just going to get right into it and hope you enjoy it. Welcome, James. Thank you so much, first of all, for giving your time. I know you're a very, very busy man, so I appreciate that. Could you let me know, or the people watching at home, how you got into photography and specifically into sports photography?
Yeah, well, my story is actually fairly unique. I done a reality TV show in 2006 on RTE, and I won the show, and I got a job with Info Sports Photography, and 17 years later, I'm still there. So yeah, that's how I got into it. I'd been into photography beforehand. I was 23. I had a DSLR that's still up there, a film camera, but I didn't actually think there was a job in it. And lucky enough, this TV show came up, and yeah, the rest is history, really.
There was no experience required or something like that, right?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was it. Yeah.
I
It's
did a
on
little bit
YouTube.
of homework, but I couldn't find images of that show. I wish I
I'll
did. I wish
I'll
it's
send you a
possible.
link to it, Dave. But like, yeah, it's
That's
embarrassing looking
crazy.
back 17 years later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it got you the job that you wanted, so
Wow, that's it. Yeah,
can't
yeah. But
you
it is.
can't
It's
really.
I had a brown suit. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
says enough. You know what I mean? Whoever needs a brown suit. So yeah.
But before that, you were into photography already, or not?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. No, I went to the States when I was 20. And well, actually, when I was in secondary school, I actually asked my career guidance teacher about becoming a photographer. And it didn't, like, back then it was before digital. So it
Yeah.
was about preparing a portfolio. I was 18. I was meeting girls. I was drinking with my friends. To go and create a portfolio didn't really seem to be something on my list at that stage. And I went to the States on a J1. I'd taken pictures of the guys I was in college and
Yeah.
stuff, and still more of a pastime than a career. And then I went to the States and I bought a film camera, which is just up my shelf up here, which is still here actually. An AX3 Fujica, which was a little film camera. It still works, I think. And I took lots of pictures out there. Didn't have a clue what I was taking, because obviously
Yeah,
now
you
you
can review right away.
yeah, like this is
Yeah.
about $200. But I remember taking lots of pictures, and most of them were out of focus, and um, because they didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, so then I went to London for a few years to work in IT, and then I bought a Nikon D50. If anyone remembers Nikon D50s, with a kit lens. And I had that when I got the job. So I used to go to sports games thinking I could take pictures with a Nikon D50 with a 55mm lens at 5.6, Tolka Park and Lansdowne Road. I had no access. I was just
Yeah.
in the stand trying to take pictures. And those pictures still exist somewhere on the internet, but we'll never dig them up. But yeah, that was 17 years ago. And that's where I am now. So yeah, it's been a mad career.
So the big learning actually started when you got into info,
Oh
or what?
yeah. That was fairly, like, I didn't really know what I was doing. There's a lot to be said for being critiqued about what you're doing, because if you're not getting critiqued, you think you're doing great, but actually when you see the standards that were in there, I was a million miles away. And then um, I just started taking pictures. I used to go out every weekend, maybe. When I was in there, I was working on the desk, looking at pictures coming in, but I was going out every weekend myself, trying to learn how these guys were taking so much better stuff than me. And look, a lot of it comes with the gear. You know yourself, David,
Yeah.
the big prime lenses and stuff, they really make a difference, but you can still get the basics with the smaller gear, and then when you get to that, you move up. It's a big difference, but
Exactly.
yeah. So
So when you were at the desk, you were editing the pictures that people were
yeah,
sending you.
editing and capturing, back then, it doesn't happen now because the photographers
Yeah.
do all their own work, but
Photo
the
mechanic and
guys
whatnot.
used to, the guys used to put in their edits, and we'd have to edit and caption them as well. And live on the day that used to come in, and we'd have to wire them out to the picture desks, add the different picture newspapers and stuff, and put them on our website. And the systems come back then, they were using like Nokia phones with that to do the dial-up thing, and it was really slow, 56 kbs a second. Like I'm at the Rugby World Cup now, and we're high-speed internet, like straight into the cameras, and just clicking one button, the pictures are back, and the desks, like, they're turning around so quickly. Like, you know, we might have 3 or 4 guys working in there on a big weekend where there's big events going on, and you might have a guy who's just, or a girl who's just deliberately or directly dealing with you, taking in your images and getting them out. And yeah, so it's a lot better now. We don't do that for every game. You know, if you're at a League of Ireland game in Talkie Park on a Friday night, you know, you just edit as you go yourself, because there's not that demand for the speed. But at the big events, Olympics and the Rugby World Cups and the soccer matches and that we'd be wearing. It's all about speed.
Yeah.
You know?
And when you take more than just one of you from info, say you organize between yourselves who's going to cover what, right? You don't sit all on the same corners and whatnot, so you have all the different angles possible.
Yeah, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make sure you give yourself every possibility of capturing the story, you know. You know, yourself, you hope that it's you that gets it and that celebrates in your corner, the try scored in your corner, the moment happens in your corner. But as a team, you're hoping that at least you guys get it as a group, you know. And I think the longer you're in photography, I'm there 17 years now, and I've come to the realization it's not going to always happen for you.
Of course.
You have to do as good as you can, and some days you'll come out and it'll just be, whatever. And then other
There's
days,
an element of luck sometimes, right? Yeah.
Especially at the big events, I think. At the smaller events, you have more leeway to move around and to change your position.
Yeah.
But say I'm in the middle of the Rugby World Cup now, and we get assigned a seat, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't move from that seat. Yeah, you can get a little bit of flexibility, but like they're on top of you saying, no, you have to sit down, you can't move. So you're really at that stage, you're reliant on it happening in front of you. Whereas if at the weekend I'm doing, I think, I don't know if this is going to be live or when this is going to go up, but I'm doing a Munster Barbarians game on Saturday, where I'll have more flexibility on moving around. There won't be people telling me to sit down, not move. If I think the game's going away from me, I can move, or if I think the light's in a better corner, I can move. So there's a little bit more flexibility to get better pictures at the events that aren't as big, but at the big events, you just kind of, sometimes you're fairly limited, you know, like we're not allowed to have remotes the World Cup. We're not allowed to do a lot of stuff. So, you know, you're basically, you're hoping it happens in front of you, really.
So besides, ignore the World Cup because that's very peculiar, right? On a normal year, let's say on a normal year, what's a work week like for you?
Yeah, so it could be anything. I'm generally off 2 days a week, so I'm off Wednesday, Thursdays. So I'll generally be shooting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Friday can be anything, especially during the winter. It's going to be probably rugby, so you're going to have a URC game. If it's not Champions Cup weekend, we could be going away to France or England doing Champions Cup, or in Ireland doing it. But I generally end up in the UK or in France quite a bit on those weekends. That's give or take 8-9 weekends of the year, which is a fifth of the year. You Six Nations weekends again when we're back in. That's another 5 weekends a year. So up to 13 weekends of the year, we are probably going to be out of the country at least. So on a normal weekend, so you're doing some kind of probably rugby or soccer during the summer. So we have the Electricity League. We'll cover a few games of that. I'm lucky enough. I haven't covered that much. Not lucky enough, but I have managed to cover that much of it this year. So Friday night could be some kind of rugby or some kind of soccer. It's generally a game day. A lot of PR. We do PR and sports PR. A lot of that doesn't happen.
Studio photography as well. Yeah.
A lot of that doesn't happen on a Friday because clients generally like to do that earlier in the week, and especially trying to get their story out. It can happen on the weekends, but a lot of it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So on a Friday we'll do some kind of game. Saturday definitely games. So it could be GA, it could be rugby, it could be anything. You know, we obviously info get different. We have Basketball Ireland's contract, and you could be sent anywhere. A Sunday, very similar. I'm lucky enough, I get to generally, when it's GA, I get to pick the biggest game that I can cover, and that's because I've been doing it for 17 years, so I get to have a little bit of conclusion or a bit of a conversation with the guys in the office and say where they're going to send me on Sunday. And then Monday, you could be even, again, studio, PR, launching something, Sport Ireland initiative, one of the provinces, anything. It could be at anything. And then Tuesdays, that's Mondays. And then Tuesdays, generally, it's a training day for most of the rugby teams. So Munster, Connacht, Leinster. We info of the contract for Connacht and Munster, so we'll definitely be at one of those probably weekly. So you're going down there and you're doing whatever needs to be done for the team, and that day, that's their day for gathering content. So yeah, that's generally a week, but every week's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could be with a client that is not sports related, but it's studio work, or I could be doing a portrait for somebody for paper, for a story that's going on. So it's fairly flexible, but you can nearly, you generally know what you're going to be doing, or a good idea of what you're going to be doing.
Any favorite sport out of everything that you covered?
Well, look, I'm from Westmeath, so Gaelic football is that's where we have our the best of our ability is there, and I've grown up going to those games. So I must say I do like Gaelic football. It's not a hurling county in Westmeath, so bizarrely everyone says hurling's great, but I love doing the Munster Championship and stuff. But unfortunately, this the way the GA season's really been
Yeah.
squashed. All of the inter-county stuff, like we do at this weekend, I'm doing a club final, but it's always very just get in, do the club final, and get out, and it just seems like you're missing the whole season for those players. You're just turning up. The inter-county does have that. Like the All Ireland should be last weekend. Do you know what I mean? That's for the first 12 years I was working there. The All Ireland football final would have been last weekend, where it's been over nearly 2 months now, which is mad. So Gaelic football definitely would be my favorite, and then followed by, I suppose, rugby. I'm doing a lot of rugby. Info or heavily contracted with rugby clients, so it's good to do that. Rugby's hard. It's hard, and it's not hard to photograph, but the pictures sometimes are very,
it's different. It's different to, at least I find it, that there's a lot of dead moments, but then all of a sudden everything is happening at once.
Yeah. The game's going for
the
like
big flow.
I'm noticing the one with the Rugby World Cup, the game's going on for 2 hours, and it's a hard to stay concentrated for 2 hours. And every time there's a scrum, there's a break in play, and it can get a bit monotonous. By the end of the 2 hours, you just want it to be over, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas
But it's been treating you well, though, right? Ireland's playing really well. So
without Gaelic football, absolutely. I've traveled nearly everywhere in the world with rugby, which is brilliant. Apart from that, we have a soccer photographer. I might do international soccer, but generally I wouldn't do the away games. So when we have 4 people in the Aviva, I would do that. So in Gaelic football, I'm not traveling the world with that. So to see the world, for me, it's either Olympics or rugby. So very much of that. I think
the Olympics must be very, very different from everything else, right?
Yeah, we're planning the next Olympics already. Do you know?
Already.
Not 10 months away, but we're me and my colleague we're at the moment trying to source accommodation. We've been offered Olympic accommodation. We're not overly happy with it, so we're trying to source something separate from that. So we've been working on that all week. So it's very much like it's a year out where you start thinking about the Olympics, and but it's the pinnacle of sports photography when you want to be going to go somewhere. But I've said before in the past that it's bizarre because it's probably the easiest thing to photograph. Physically, it's not, because you're at lots of events and you're running around
a lot of hours. Yeah.
A lot of hours, but actually at the venues, they generally have you in good locations as long as you get there on time. The photo managers, who are generally old photographers or previous photographers running each venue, they know where the good spots are, where photographers want to be. We're Irish, so there's a kind of an international agency pool, so they get their very best spots. I can't remember they're different, slightly different bibs. So you have your Reuters, your Gettys, and your AFP, and whoever. There's maybe 5 agencies that will get the very prime spots, and then if an Ireland competitor is competing, then we will get the next best spot. But if there's no Irish competitor, then we could be out in the poorer spots. But generally they're all quite good. And a lot of times you just get in there, get a picture of the Irish person, and get out. Especially if they're not going to win a medal, because it's just more or less recording it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where someone's going to win a medal, and that's where the emphasis is going to be, and that's where the pictures are going to be. So but looking at it already, it's going to be a tough logistical Olympics. Paris is brilliant, but the venues are far apart. I assume it's going to be a lot of public transport. And
how do you do that? That's one thing that puzzles me. and like scares me sometimes is when I go to a venue I don't know. And in Ireland, this is a big problem for parking. And you're
Mm.
carrying, thousands and thousands of euros in gear.
Mm.
Like if you're in a different country, how do you prepare for that? Especially if you're going with
Um,
public transport.
well, well, a very poignant question because there was two English photographers. One was robbed in Paris on Sunday. Another guy was nearly mugged on Tuesday. So we've been hearing back stories from the Olympics, and you can say, look, you have to be very aware of your surroundings. Make sure you don't, you don't go somewhere where you shouldn't be. Make sure you use, Ubers are great in those countries now, so try to use Ubers. Try not to get caught in a dark alley on your own
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
dodgy at 10 o'clock at night. But the guy that was robbed in Charles in Gardiner on Sunday basically just took his eyes off his bag for 10 seconds and it was gone. And a lot of us photographers are using think tanks now. They're fairly obvious. If you get to know what they are, you know what they are. Like I always wrap my hand kind of around it when I'm in public. And then there's cables in it. So I
yeah,
do
yeah,
lock
yeah.
it. I was on a
Yeah, I
train,
got a
so I locked
think tank myself recently as well, and I used to use a Pelicase, which in my
it.
opinion even calls for more attention.
Yeah.
So, but
The
yeah, so
rattling. But it's a
exactly.
little bit rattling up the gear. I have a Pelicase in my boot that I have my spare stuff in, and like say this weekend, if it's lashing rain and I go to a venue, I'll take out the gear I need, put in the Pelicase, and bring it onto the pitch because at
Yeah,
least then it's very much like the think
100%.
tank
Yeah,
gets wet, it gets a bit damp and stuff, and
yeah,
the water can get into it. But it is water resilient, but not water resistant. But the think tank's like I'd often put the think tank in a puddle of water and sit in it. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
If I
It's
can
completely safe. Exactly.
nothing's going to happen to it. You know what I mean?
But
But yeah, you have to be really careful. And I think it's been a wake up call for us all about last weekend. So I actually I recently, like in the last 2 weeks, I've switched over to mirrorless cameras completely. So I'm going to a couple of
what are
our
you shooting
trees.
with right now then?
Two or trees and an R5 is my kind of camera I use in the studio, and then I have a 1DX Mark III as a remote. So I have four bodies at the moment. But um, I've just literally I emailed the office this morning and said, "Here's all my serial numbers. Can please make sure they're up to date?" Because sometimes that little thing, where you get new gear in the middle of the year and you don't actually get onto the insurance company,
Yeah, yeah.
so you just have to be really, really cautious that your insurance is up to date. So in case anything happens, because it can happen. Like we've had photographers in Dublin who've been robbed after events. It hasn't happened in the last few years in Dublin, lucky enough, but we had one guy whose house was robbed 3 times in Dublin, so they obviously knew he was a
Jesus.
photographer. And we had another guy who was at an event, and it's just a photo call. Had some lights out. Went back to his car. Was sitting in his car on his phone. And next thing, a car drove up beside him, and just so he couldn't open his door. And someone got out the other side, opened up his boot, took his think tank, put it in their car, and drove off. So like, yeah, look, you're sitting in your car, lock your car. If you're you just have to be careful. You know what I mean? Like I was in, where was I last? A couple of weeks ago. I was in Marseille actually about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and I just got to the train station. I'm a smoker, hands up, confess. But I got to the train station after being traveling all day, and I wanted to have a cigarette. And I went out the side, and there was a couple of dodgy characters, and they started coming up and trying to have conversations with me. And I see one guy tried to go behind me. So you just have to be very, very. And I told him to fuck F off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There was a guy trying to distract me from the front. This guy tried to go behind me, so I backed myself into the wall, and I told him to fuck F
yeah.
off. You just have to, and
Very
make sure
vigilant.
you're brave enough to make those calls. I didn't feel anyway threatened there, but I could see how there was potentially something happening. You know what I mean? And whether they didn't want to rob my camera gear, maybe they just wanted to, get close to try to rob my phone or whatever. But yeah, you have to be vigilant. You know what I mean? Like it's generally good, but like you just have to be vigilant.
So, what's
Yeah,
your gear like for a normal event, like a rugby match or a soccer
yeah.
match? So,
So
have three camera bodies?
yeah, well, probably two. Like I might have one in the boot. If there's an opportunity, if the weather's half decent and I can do a remote, then yeah, there'll be
In
three
Ireland?
bodies. Yeah, Doesn't happen all the time. Well, like if it's dry, like you could do a remote, but you need some kind of sky generally with a remote. Gray skies don't really work. So,
Yeah.
but the generally go-to stuff would be two bodies, a 7200 and a prime lens. So I have 400 2.8 with a converter, which I use sometimes, but generally the 2.8, a 7200, and then I'd have some kind of wide lens to kind of tell the scene, to set the scene, to tell the story. So I have a 16 to 35. Well, that's actually I've switched over to a 14 to, what is it, 14 to 35 f4 or f1. So yeah, so just some kind of wide lens. So generally 3 lenses, 2 bodies. Yeah, that's generally my go-to. The laptop and cards, monopod. Yeah, that's it.
How are
But
you finding the switch to mirrorless?
yeah, it's challenging a little bit. It's getting there. What I've found, I'm struggling a lot with advertising boards that are LEDs. So there's a lot of stuff going on now. I've figured it, especially when you're in electronic mode, which
Yeah.
you don't want
Rolling
to be.
shutter.
I learned my lesson and not to shoot electronic mode in plus.
Oh
um,
Jesus, it's
yeah,
insane.
I've seen your video, Dave. Like I think anyone like by just being fairly cautious, you're shoot 10,000 frames plus without even
Oh,
noticing. You know what I mean? At a big
exactly.
event. So at the weekend, like generally we'd average about from a big game 3.5 4,000
Yeah.
frames generally. That's overshooting, but that's generally what we'd average. And I think on Saturday at the Ireland South Africa game, I think it was 11,000. It's like
Wow.
fucking hell. It's all going through. So I was doing a game on Sunday and I switched it back to the continuous, and it was like 4,000 again. So that was
Yeah.
grand.
Mechanical shutter. Yeah.
And I'm confused a little bit because you hold down the button and it clicks, where I'm constantly going like this for some reason because I don't think it's shooting. So you can see me going like this. I don't know why I'm doing that.
I think you can turn on like a sound, like a fake sound for the shutter.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what I like about the mirrorless and what I found is beneficial is um when you're beside other photographers in that real close proximity and you might see something, it's nice to be able to do it silently,
Yeah.
to take
Yeah.
the picture. Because generally before in
It's
the
only
past,
you.
when someone goes click next to here, click, 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 everyone's actually, because I'm not saying I didn't do it, but the minute you hear something, you're like, what's
Yeah. What's going on? I need that too.
I must be missing something here. So there is a
That's a
niceness
good
of
point,
leaving
actually.
on the side of the thing and just saying, if I see it, because there is times you see things, blood or someone injured or something, and you just want to, and before you'd be like, click,
Yeah.
just trying to take work. Now you can shoot away, so it is good. The advertising hoardings with the LED flicker, and I've figured that out in somewhat. It's a little bit convoluted. There's something wrong with the hertz compared to the cameras using compared to what the LEDs are set to. So you get all these lines
Yeah. The
across the.
bending. Yeah. You got the
Yeah,
bending. Yeah.
so but you can go in and you can set, you can manually detect the hertz rate, and then it'll change the shutter speeds to like odd numbers. Like, so I think at the weekend I was shooting at 4,092, so which
Okay.
seemed to got rid of it. But if I went up to 4,000, the next one up was
You need to see it again.
4,737, and it was back again, and below it was 3,597, and it was there. So you're trying to get the shutter speed that it's working at, and then going up and down with ISOs as opposed to going up and down with, sometimes you want to go up a little bit or down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit annoying, but I was talking to some English guys, they say they don't even notice anymore. They just shoot with the band and they don't care. But for me, it's fairly obvious. I think during the day, probably wouldn't matter as much, but at nighttime, I'm finding that the games I've been doing, it's very apparent. You know what I mean? And especially if you do any kind of crop, you're going closer to the subject, and then it's
Then it's
becoming
more
quite bad.
evident. Yeah.
Yeah, but now if it's really bad, you can switch back to mechanical shutter. You're still 10 frames a second, which should be fine. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that was the one thing I found.
Something I really do appreciate in the new mirrorless is being able to review the photo without taking your eye from the viewfinder.
Yeah. So the problem
Especially
is, I'm finding this. It actually looks better in the viewfinder than it does in person. Like, there's some kind of 3D element going on in there.
It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah,
Weird.
and the double look
It's
is good on
hard
the
to get
laptop.
used to that change. you know.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
don't like. Some of the guys are saying they don't like the way there's a little flicker in it when it's going, and they're finding it slow to get up. But like, they're amazing cameras. But the cameras 6 years ago were amazing cameras. If you look at
Oh
sports
yeah,
picture taking
exactly,
six,
exactly.
like when people say to
People
me
just
getting in
want
sports
more and
photography,
better every time.
yeah. When people
You
want to
get
get in
used
sports
to it,
photography,
and sometimes it's good to look back and say, "Jesus, look at what I used to shoot with, and look at this. This is amazing." So,
well, the
and
first
they're just
camera
a
I
tool
shot,
at the end. So,
the first camera I shot with property and info was a 1D. It was a Canon 1D. So I'll go through it. I've been on 1Ds, 1D Mark twos, 1D Mark 2Ns, 1D Mark threes, 1D Mark fours, 1DXs, 1DX Mark two, 1DX Mark three. Now the R3. So it's nine. I think it's nine. One two. I think it's nine cameras
that's
that
great.
I've shot with. And now the 1Ds were awful. Like they were fine during the day, but anything over 640 ISO you can forget about. Just
Yeah,
became
too much
crap.
rain.
The
Yeah,
one D Mark two was a brilliant step up, and then there was a Mark two N, which is a bigger screen. That was even better. Like that wasn't a bad camera. The one D Mark three was good. The four was good. Like the one DX, which you can get now for about less than a grand. You know what I
oh
mean? It's
yeah,
still
easily.
a camera we spent 6 grand on 8 years ago. You know what I mean? Not much as the lights and venues have got better. Do you know what I
Exactly,
mean?
exactly.
So still, if you can get a fresh one of those, like it's very achievable to get in. I wouldn't be going back to the 1Ds with the big long batteries, but the 1D Mark twos or the 1DX Mark twos, brilliant cameras. 1DX brilliant camera, and guarantee you get one for less than a grand. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And you'd be still at 8-9 frames a second, being able to shoot at probably 6400 ISO, no problem. You know what I mean? There is very cheap, but the more, like I still wanted the R3s. Like there was not a lot wrong with the 1DX Mark threes. My only issue probably with mine was the mileage on them. They were
yeah,
4 years. They were fairly they were starting to bits were starting to fall off them. But I'm probably the hardest person in the world with gear. But and I used to say, well, it's because I work so hard. But it's probably not that. Like it's just hard on gear because it's we're working 5 days a week with them. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
In all kinds
But
of
those things
conditions.
are built to last. They're built like tanks.
Yeah,
The Pro body, so
and if they
they'll
will
last.
break, I will break them.
Yeah,
It's very breakable. I would definitely will break them. But I think I've got better throughout the years with gear. But like you can never, you're going to have an accident once a year. You're going to let something fall. No matter how careful you are. You
yeah.
know.
So one thing that gear does not give you, right, is the
Mhm.
attention to detail. And there's a few photos I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
One of it's let me just start sharing because I'll let you speak because this one in particular went viral on the top left, right?
Yes.
Can you see it? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So when I saw this, I thought, how in the world is this possible? This is like a one in a million. And then I read all the interviews that you gave and whatnot to find out what the story was. But I'll let you tell it. But just explain exactly what is happening there. It's just amazing, insane.
Yeah. There's a couple of probably 100,000 or more birds forming the shape of a bird. So that was it's a murmuration of starlings in Lough. What during lockdown, I was looking for a project or something to do because sport had stopped. So one of my friends lives near the Lake Colnhog, and he was like, let's try get a picture of the murmuration. So about 60 nights later, this happened, and it obviously went all over the world. I guess there's not. That was 3 years ago. There's not a day, or about 2.5 years ago. There's not a day that someone doesn't mention it. David, you've mentioned it
Sure.
today, but
Yeah.
but but no, it does. It's mentioned all the time, and I'm very proud of the image. I'm proud of the work that we've done. I'm still 2 years later. I still used to go to the lake and still do. Probably will again this year. It's becoming a pastime. I've probably enough for a book out of the murmurations at this stage. Just have to get someone to publish it.
Yeah.
So it's just been a brilliant picture. That's probably, as I said to my wife, as long as when I die they don't put it on my gravestone, because that's the last thing you want. So that I hope
Yeah.
some people remember me for my sport, but probably at the moment probably more better
Yeah.
known for my nature.
And even better is that there's actually video of this. And let me see if I
Yeah.
can share it because it's just remarkable. Let me share the screen and pick the right tab, which is this one. Okay, and hopefully, let me see if it's showing. Yeah, it is. So let me just hit play
Yeah,
so people can actually see it. It's insane. Insane. There we go. Boom. Split of a second.
That's a bird.
that's me.
It's just amazing, amazing. And you can hear, is it you or your friend saying, that's a bird? That's a bird.
That's me saying it's a bird. Colin was shooting with my 1DX Mark II, and so I was on the 1DX Mark III, and I set him up with the 24-70 just to shoot. And it was only the first night we'd properly shot video. Like it just so bizarre. I don't know whether I just knew something was going to happen or innately knew something was going to happen, but just so really lucky. And we have that video footage to be able to. There was a lot of real there. Like AI wasn't even a thing when that was taken. I would imagine now what they get is AI video.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
And I've a very much anti AI in photography. It's not photography; it's art. Like, and so yeah, so I got a lot of naysayers at the time. So have the video was just amazing to be able to say, look, this is it. So it was brilliant,
I think in sports photography we're still safe from AI because I don't think it just can't be replaced unless they might have remote cameras being controlled by AI or whatever. But I think there's one thing that they'll never have, which is the attention to detail. And this is the thing. I'm going to show a picture now of a game that I was at as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see this. And this is because I don't have the eye that you do. Let me just show the picture and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So explain this because it's just amazing.
Yeah, just that little kid. I didn't actually get his name. He obviously became public. I think Radio 1 started looking for the guy's name, so it came out in the wash. But yeah, it was just seeing him on the steps, and I kind of generally in Crow Park I sit slightly away from people, so I kind of can concentrate. I am a yapper at times, so Dave, if you're sitting beside me, you might end up talking, and I have to kind of put myself away sometimes to stop talking to people. It's not to try get away, it's me getting away from them to stop me talking. So just spotted this guy in the steps, and he was there for about 3 or 4 minutes, and I took a few pictures of it, but I was just waiting for that moment, and then he just stood there for 1 second. Obviously the play caught his attention, and it was just it went down very well this summer, and it's a real GAA thing, isn't it? Like,
and it's very interesting that you don't see see people on the phone on that picture. Did you realize that?
No. Yeah. I think sports. I know when there's a big moment. If there was a last minute free there, I guarantee you they'd all take out their phones. Because that's the way it goes. But just in that normal run of the play of sport, people can just sit back and relax and enjoy it. Like, and it's great. And you see those funny pictures, which I'm sure we'll see one from the Ryder Cup this week of someone taking a big shot and all the phones out, I think people should just try living the moment, like that crappy iPhone video will never get seen the light of day. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know why everyone insists on trying to do it. And maybe it's just it's becoming part of our being that we have to try record everything. But it is nice there's no phones in that picture. I think someone found one, but it won't look too hard.
Out of 100 maybe, so that's a pretty good ratio. I take that.
I think it's someone reading their phone. I don't think they're taking a picture. I think it's just someone probably didn't want to be at the game.
Very good. So listen, if you were to go back in time, would you do anything different, or put it in a different way? What advice would you give for anyone that would like to start to get into sports photography these days?
Yeah, well, I'm so I got in so luckily. I thought you were going to say if you go back in time, any sport event, it'd be great because I know exactly where to sit. And because every big event you're at, you sometimes say, "Oh, if only I was there," or You know what I mean? Because you can see, you don't get the picture every time. So that's not the question, thank God, because that's very wild. If I was to go back in time, like I'm very privileged where I've worked and who I've worked for. You know, I get on with my boss fairly well. We have our arguments up and down, but it is generally great. He gives me leeway. He encourages creativity. You know, so I'm very blessed to work for who I work for. Um, if I was to go back in time, you know, I'd probably eat less burgers. Definitely. Um, I've definitely learned to have an interest in salad, which I don't seem to have an interest in. I probably would have smoked about 40 to 400,000 less cigarettes. But yeah, no, look, you do what you do and you see what happens, you know. I'm not going to give anyone some mad, great piece of advice here, unfortunately, Dave.
No, no worries, no worries. And what about the challenges? Like, what is most challenging about your job besides all the traveling? Because that must be just exhausting at times, right? Being away from the family that long.
Yeah, and like I'm lucky. You know, I've got a wife and kids now, so I'm not. It's harder being young. Like my wife was with me when I started this job, so she's always understood it. I know a lot of the guys starting our place. It's hard to try have a young social life and be a sports photographer because it's
Yeah.
very weekend orientated. Um, so yeah, that's probably a tough part of it. Um, what was the question again? Sorry, Jeff.
Well, what are the biggest challenges? Like, what is hard about the job?
Oh, yeah. Look, as you said, being away, you're missing out on birthdays and your own birthday, and like I spent my own birthday away on my own a few times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, like, but if you love sport, it's not like it's. I'm going to the generally every weekend. I'm going to something that I would love to go to anyway. Like I'm not a music fan, so I love music, but I've never. I'd say I've been to about 4 concerts in my life, but
Okay.
like that's so. I love sports, and I love sports. I love photography. So the two of them together is brilliant, and I'm lucky to have the opportunity the last few years to be able to, you know, I'm very much enjoying nature at the moment as well, and doing a bit of that. I think
I see you
you
do some drone photography as well, right?
I do a little bit related to work, not as much as I probably like. It's more of a work tool than a drone photographer, if you know what I
Okay.
mean. So I do. You know, there is times. I think during lockdown, I definitely experienced or played around a bit more with the drone as a tool. But you sometimes you get a little bit. I think at the moment, um, you know, the quality is good, but it's not amazing. There's limitations to drone photography.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's more of a work tool, I call it now. It's in the boot every day. I might use it once a month for something that I need to use. Um, I'm very much rules. I like to stick by rules sometimes, especially with drones. And
Yeah.
when you
Same.
do that,
Same.
you're very limited to what you can do. Do you know?
Very, very limited.
Like you've been like away from less crowds of less than 50 people and blah blah blah. You know, it does limit down what you can do.
Yeah.
Um, and then you know, clients are always some clients looking for more and more drone stuff, and you know, I have to say, look, I can do it, but I can't put my name to it because it's not technically legal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you know, I won't put it out under my name unless all the boxes are ticked. I have the the license or whatever. I don't have the license to fly over big crowds or anything, so I have the license to do the bare minimum.
Yeah. Same.
But you have to be careful with those things as well. Um, what I would say is, with regards to sports photography, if you, I think, in photography in general, like I take pictures every day, whether it's the kids, whether it's wildlife, whether it's sunsets or sunrises. So I'm taking pictures all around my normal work week because it's a hobby of mine. And I think if it is a hobby and you're mixing sport in, you're never working a day. Like you're never really working a day. You know what I mean? So I think I see some guys and they'll never take their cameras out unless they're working. And I couldn't do that. You know, I'd crack up. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I love experimenting. I love trying different things. I'm, you know, currently trying to do a bit of video very badly. But it's another challenge and trying to learn how to edit a bit of video. I don't want to become a videographer, but I think photographers have a good eye for video, so I think
Yeah,
there is opportunities to do stuff in that field as well.
very good. One last question, because I know we've been here 40 minutes, so I appreciate your time. So thank you very much. Is there any event that you
Okay.
haven't done yet that you're just like, I need to do this? I haven't done this specific game or specific event, or you've checked everything off your wish list.
Well, I've done two. I've done two Olympics. So I'm going on to the third one this year. I've done three Rugby World Cups, two Euros. Um, yeah, I've done a lot. I've done a Lions tour. I've done New Zealand. What I would love to do, not that I would love to do it, but I'd say if I could go back in time, I would love to have photographed soccer before it became very, very much. Like I look at the Soccer World Cup in Qatar this year, and it looked very
Yeah,
plastic.
yeah,
The
yeah,
stadiums
yeah,
are all wrapped in the same stuff, and but if I look back at the stuff from '86 or even 1990, it looked real genuine. Like Mexico in '86 or Italy in 1990. I'd
yeah.
love to be around for those. I still probably would like to photograph a Soccer World Cup. Um, what was I say?
Next one should be
There's so
interesting then. Canada, US,
yeah,
and Mexico.
yeah, but
And there's more
for
teams
me,
too. So
for me to get there, um, well, through the company info I work for, we need Ireland to get there. Do you know what I mean?
okay.
So that's not looking likely at the moment. So
You never know. You never know.
I hope so.
There's
But
more
yeah,
spots. I think there's more spots in this World Cup, right? I think so. I
I
believe
don't
so.
want to diss Ireland soccer or anything, but we probably need a good few spots where
Yeah.
we currently are
It's
at.
a shame. It's one of the things like as Portuguese, when I got to this country, I didn't know what Gaelic football was. This was 13 years ago. I've been here for 13
Yeah,
years. And I remember my first memories turning on, I was in Ireland for 2 days maybe, turning on the TV, and it was an All Ireland final, hurling final.
yeah,
And I was just like a donkey looking at a castle, like, what is this? What is this sport? What are they
yeah,
doing? What score is that? What do you mean 0 point something? Like everything and the speed and just it was just insane. And it frustrates me now that I consider myself a little bit Irish because I have two
yeah.
kids that were born here. So it's in my heart as well. And I'm frustrated that these sports don't get played in different countries. I would love to see a World Cup of hurling, a World Cup of
Yeah,
Gaelic football. That would be just amazing. And you'd be at that one for sure. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, but I'm just actually thinking there. I'd love to actually photograph, maybe the IPL, a bit of cricket in India. I'd love to spend a bit of time in India doing cricket. I'm not a big cricket fan. Well, I like cricket now since I started. Understand it. I wouldn't be a massive cricket head, but I love the way India gets so mad about it. You know what I mean? And the crowds and the craziness. I think that'd be fun. I'd love to spend a season with one of the IPL teams as an IPL photographer. That'd be kind of good. Um, I wouldn't like to photograph the Ashes or anything. 5 days for one game. Don't buy that. But the nice, 2020 games, which are nice and quick. So I'd like to do something like that. I went to Kenya last year to do some work with a charity. I'd like to do more of that. I thought it was
was that
very,
the hurling and camogie players that
no,
went?
no, I went out with a charity called CBM
Okay,
Ireland. So they basically deal with people with disabilities in
okay,
poor parts of the world. So they deal with I'm in Kenya, Nigeria, or Kenwa, Zimbabwe, and Madagascar in Africa. The Irish branch does. So I went out and I done some case studies. So I actually, photographed, done a report, videoed a couple of people, and just try to tell their stories. I really enjoyed that. So that's something I definitely want to continue going. I think there's going to be an exhibition in a couple of weeks in Dublin with the pictures. So
wonderful.
unfortunately, it's the day before the World Cup final. So
Uh,
even though it's going to be my second, like, it's not solely my exhibition, but it's my pictures. It's the charity's exhibition, but it's an exhibition of my images, and I won't be able to be there. Really disappointed about that. But it was just I said any chance I can do it the week after the World Cup final, but unfortunately I won't be able to make it. I know I had a calendar out, Dave. I know you bought one. Thank you very much. I seen the
no
order
worries.
come
No
through.
worries.
I hope it doesn't disappoint. But look, it was a calendar we shot in one day, and it was more about that. This calendar is more about trying to raise some funds. We've printed 1,100 of them, so if we can sell 1,000 of them, we'll get 10 grand for the charity for
Where can
orphan
people
cancer.
find one if they want to buy it? In
So
your
they're on my
website?
website, yeah, jamescrombie.ie. So they'll be there for the first couple of weeks, and then we're going to get them into some stores and hopefully then. So we'll see how we go. We've gone through. We've sold about 100. So we launched them this week. So we're getting there. 900 more to go. I keep saying, and this is terrible. Like I posted a picture and I got 99 likes. So I said, "Buy it." 99 people buy it.
Yeah,
But that's the way
exactly.
my head works. I said,
Yeah.
don't like it if you're not buying it. Do you know what I mean? But hopefully we'll shift 1,000 of them, and that'll be a good little hit for the charity ahead of Christmas.
Very good. And where can people find you on social media?
So you can find me on social media, info James, and I think David will hopefully put up the text of that. It's INPHO James. That's on Twitter and on Instagram. That's mainly where I'm at. So yeah.
Perfect. James, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And best of luck to Ireland in the World Cup. And I hope you're sitting at the right spot at the right time to catch all of those tries and lifting the trophy.
Hopefully,
Thank you so
hopefully as
much,
well,
James.
David. It'd be amazing if Ireland do. Thanks, bro. See you, bro.
And that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. And obviously, don't forget to follow James on his social media platforms. I'm going to put the links on screen right now. And until next time, take it easy, guys. Stay safe.